Hi everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
As always, I hope that this podcast finds you well. Today I'm going to be talking about 21st century gynecology, outdated, unsuccessful, and downright dangerous. The gynaecological medical field, which is designed to focus on women's pelvic health, is still carrying out 150-year-old surgical and medical procedures that are massively outdated and downright dangerous. Yet no one is questioning this. It is estimated that it cost $5.5 billion to build a rocket that housed Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, and fly into space for a mere 10 minutes. If the pelvic health of men plagued them as much as it did women, I am certain that the investment in modernising and updating gynecological procedures would be far more advanced than women find them today. Equally, very few women understand their pelvic health and their body signs and symptoms, for this is not taught within school as subjects or other educational establishments. If young girls were taught how to read the landscape and the language of their body and monthly cycles, then they would learn the power they have over them. Theoretically, young girls would learn how to become a boss of their body. They would learn that pain with a period is not normal. They would learn that what they put in their body, on their body, and was around their body, and how it was affected by it. And how they can systematically influence, swap out, and heal their body naturally. With the right awareness, information, education, and inspiration, all which lead to empowerment, what I call the AIEIE. Henry Ford, once the world's greatest innovator and entrepreneur in his time, was quoted as saying, "If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." I equally question that if he was still around today and also suffered from pelvic health issues, the approach to gynecological treatments would be vastly improved. Women do not know what they don't know. Right now, women are searching the internet for their quick fix medical fix. Looking for that new invasive procedure, the best surgeon with the smallest hands, or looking for a procedure that they had been told uses robotic arms and given the task of slicing through their abdomen to remove endometrial deposits from their delicate intestinal and internal organs. Yet few women are aware of the downright dangerous side effects of such procedures routinely carried out on surgical laparoscopic procedures. Is it any wonder there are so many side effects? The side effects range from perforated bowels, pierced bladder, and damage to the stomach surface, which are reported leaving women with devastatingly long-term side effects and feeling worse than they were before they started. Ask a woman with endometriosis what she wants, and the first protocol is surgery. Not surprising, given that to even get a diagnosis of endometriosis these days, she has to have a laparoscopic surgical procedure to diagnose it. This is ridiculous in this day and age, when we are able to send men up in rockets to space and robots to various places and planets in our solar system. However, the development of non-invasive procedures like a simple blood test, like the mitomic test, which detects endometrious tissue in the bloodstream, is still underinvested and still remains in the case study mode being tested today. Gynaecological medical treatments are big business. Another surgical procedure called a hysterectomy, where all of the woman's female sex organs are removed, are promoted and performed at an alarming rate around the world. This operation is touted as a cure for endometriosis, which is highly misleading. The majority of women experience the turn of endometrial systems as the root underlying causes of the condition have not been addressed. Women are left devastated when they have their important sex female organs removed. The carefully structured womb has been designed by nature to separate the bowel and the bladder. However, once the bladder falls on top of the bowels, it results in numerous infections and irritations. Women are thrown into cruel and immediate menopause as they navigate trying to rebalance a body that was already out of balance, but now without its important female organs. One just has to consider the idea of men having their sex organs removed as a cure to their pelvic pain to realise how that would be a totally dismissed idea by them. The majority of doctors performing the procedures are male who have never even experienced a monthly cycle, the pain of a monthly cycle, or the birth of a child. It was reported in the book The Hysterectomy Hoax by Dr. Stanley West that actually only 2% of hysterectomies are actually required, and that is invariably in the case of cancer. After reading this, it left me reeling to hear how many women put themselves through a procedure they know very little about, or its after effects or side effects, and in some cases the huge debt accrued to going privately in an attempt to escape the pain. You can't go back to the gynaecological department and get further assistance when you have no gynaecological parts left. So the gynaecological approach is the same worldwide for endometriosis. The current antiquated gynaecological medical approach to endometriosis is not designed to address the root underlying causes of it. It is designed at best to try and suppress symptoms and manage them. As such, medicine regularly, if not always, falls short in many of its principal goals, which are to prevent disease, promote and maintain health, and relieve pain and suffering. Now, whilst medicine has many essential and indispensable roles, such as in the case of childbirth, accident emergency, transplants, etc., in many other areas it is failing women with endometriosis and adenomyosis. You only have to look at the undeniable increase in many non-infectious diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and of course, endometriosis. Let's be clear that my intention is not to bash the medical field, for that would achieve very little. I have mentioned in many of my masterclasses and podcasts before that the medical marvels the establishment has mastered, as discussed above. However, when it comes to diseases like endometriosis and adenomyosis, the medical machine struggles. The outdated gynaecological model is left flummoxed by the increasing array of symptoms and further conditions. Thus, I will not highlight the many failings and malpractice of medicine. In fact, I couldn't unless I wanted this podcast to last for the remainder of my life. Yet I think it fitting to outline some shocking medical scandals from a few years ago that highlight the importance of caution with prescribed quick fixes and cure-alls. Bayer Healthcare Pharmaceuticals has faced hundreds of lawsuits over claims that its birth control product, Mirena Coil, has caused several neurological side effects for women who have used it. The Mirena intrauterine device, IUD, is a T-shaped piece of plastic inserted into the uterus to prevent pregnancy. The disorder is called pseudotumor cerebri, or idiopathic intracranial hypertension, is amongst the risk factors, plus the headaches, migraines, worsening visions, tetanus and nausea. A former student of mine was left crippled in abdominal pain for over 2 years after the fitment of an IUD that was perforated in her womb and left her bleeding profusely and racked with fear that she would die. In April 2018, Bayer offered $12.2 million to settle over 4,600 perforation cases in women. What we lack now in our societies is wise older women with expert knowledge and understanding of the female body. Sadly, the demise of such trusted sources of knowledge and reassurance started in the 1600s. For many years, mature midwives and female healers in the UK were actually banished from towns and burned at the stake for sharing their wisdom, further comfort and knowledge to their fellow women about their bodies during her challenging times. The gynaecological role was then passed over to male doctors. Throughout history, women's health, in turn, was commandeered by men who, A, had not once had the experience of one menstrual cycle, or B, had never given birth to one child, and C, sadly, some who disliked women and tried to disempower them. Historically, as these doctors were not women themselves, they could not sympathise with their patients. Most had ingrained narcissistic, misogynistic and patriarchal tendencies, were absent of empathy and compassion, yet fooled with the perception that women were hysterical, complaining and neurotic. You just have to read back to the Victorian times when hysteria was given as a medical diagnosis to women who dared to express or question their pelvic pain and distress with their male doctor. To diagnose a woman with hysteria when experiencing abdominal pain and suffering was so utterly demeaning and crushing to so many multi-millions of women and their spirit throughout history. The gynaecological medical field is archaic, outdated, and in need of being modernised. For example, the abdominal hysterectomy procedure, as mentioned above, is still the exact same procedure carried out today as it was over 100 years ago. Even though you can naturally heal the body and preserve the woman's womb and her ovaries and cervix, many doctors promote a hysterectomy as this kind of cure-all to her pain and suffering. Those who know my story know that this procedure was promoted to me as a cure. I was lucky never to be tempted, as my poor mother had been bullied into a hysterectomy at a young age and was never the same afterwards. She once explained to me, whilst repeatedly weeping when her pain returned with a vengeance, that she suffered from bladder and bowel perforations and could never ever have close relations again with my father. The gynaecological training advocates only 3 approaches to women's pelvic pain and disorders: painkillers, drugs, or surgery. The irony is these approaches may end up causing more harm and hurt to a woman's body, which is already pained and inflamed. For example, look at the surgery which involves cutting through the abdominal flesh and into the already inflamed abdominal cavity. Why aren't women warned about these potentialities, about the risks? Why aren't they being informed of a safer, side effect-free route, like healing naturally? If I had been warned about the laparoscopy procedures and their side effects and potential issues, and the ones I did end up having, I would have been forced to stop and take a longer look and find the natural route a lot earlier than I did. I would and could have saved myself decades of loneliness, depression, pain and suffering. You see, this natural holistic method that I advise and suggest, aka the Laidlaw protocols, is completely risk-free. The most beautiful element is there are no side effects. You work with what you have. You swap out what is toxic to the body. You put in what nourishes it. And bingo, your body does what it always wants to do, which is to heal itself. Look at your finger. If you were to cut it now, it would start to heal, all by itself. In fact, I'm growing reticent to compare the Laidlaw protocols as another route, because as a matter of fact, they are the only route. There is no comparison between the body's natural ability to heal and the medical machine's symptom suppressive approach. If women were told painkillers and drugs merely suppress symptoms and could make them worse, I wonder if they would say, but then what? And then say, but how are you going to help me, doctor, put this condition into remission? I wish all young girls were taught in school how to systematically address the root and underlying causes of all ill health, especially period pains, because by doing so you empower the child and the young adult, and thus the adult for life. If children know how to be healthy and poison-free from a young age, they will never suffer. As, after all, surely prevention is better than the cure. As I'm sure you recognise already, things must change. It is essential for women's health care and gynaecological treatment to change, update and modernise. Change in the right direction, though, is key. Period. Pun intended. The current medical machine gives a woman a choice of medical treatments, but in reality there is no choice. Painkillers, drugs and surgery are only symptom suppressors and not treatments. I think this quote by Mahatma Gandhi says it best. The world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. Now, I'm not bitter about this space flight achievement. On the contrary, I think it's inspiring to see what is possible for humans to achieve, getting up into space. But why are we so focused about going into space when we have so plenty of issues on planet Earth already? How is it that so much attention and investment are poured into these big boys' excursions and toys when women's pelvic health is still such a global crisis? One has to question that if this was about Jeff's pelvic health or organ, would treatment have significantly advanced in that area? Or would he be at least trialling some super duper wonderful new approach? I absolutely think so. I would be willing to bet that that would be the case. Albert Einstein said 3 great forces rule the world: stupidity, fear, and greed. As a human race, our society and way of living have evolved spectacularly. We are in a period of time of constant discovery that accelerates every day. We are a tremendously creative, innovative, and intelligent species. After all, we've designed many's a rocket flight to the moon. We can even get robots to planet Mars. But like I said before, perhaps we need to pay more attention as a society on planet Earth, and with some attention to the planet Venus too. Pun intended. For all of our creative insight and brilliance, we as humans are also meant to hold a deep level of care for one another. At least that is what we are told to us by the dominant male species in the world. This is what makes us human, is it not? I also believe that another reason more has not been done or invested or prioritised in the gynaecological medical field is that most women are conditioned from a young age to be a good girl and to be seen and not heard and not to complain. I wonder how many women listening to this podcast now were told by their mother or father to sit quiet, sit pretty, be a good girl, don't whinge or complain, with the message, you were a bad girl if you spoke up and out and made a noise. That long-term conditioning translates into generations of women who are silenced and shamed into the shadows of secret suffering. Many women are reluctant to share their anxiety, fear, sadness, depression, and decades of pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Just look at how embarrassing and shameful it is for a woman to mention her period to a man, let alone to another woman, who also goes through the same thing every month. And how many young girls were told by well-meaning older generations of mums, aunts and grandmothers that pain with a period is normal. Let's be clear once and for all that pain with a period is not normal. Just because many women experience a painful monthly cycle every month and have done so for years does not mean that is normal. Commonality does not equal normality. Many women do not realize that pain in the body is the body's only way to communicate that something is not right. It is essential that women come together, like in the golden olden times, to share what works for their bodies every month. It requires a sharing of simple yet positive, encouraging steps from older women to their younger generations, to show them how to become a detective and identify the root underlying causes and issues that were once causing their pain and symptoms in the first place. If that open dialogue can begin again, then women can become a boss of their bodies. If that can be done, then girls and all women worldwide can become a boss of their endometriosis, an endoboss. I make it my mission to revolutionize and modernize the gynaecological field worldwide, or at least to empower women to take back power and control of their gynaecological parts. And I finish with the quote, an uplifting rally call to all the governments, women's health policy makers, medical training organisations and educational establishments around the world. As Nelson Mandela wisely said, if you really want to change the world, help the women. To your health.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K Laidlaw, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one, for the world needs a healthy you.